Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
Campaign Tales. Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
Campaign Tales. So, another campaign.
Yeah. This is the one right after our Halloween one.
Yeah.
And so we leave after the village disappears and the blizzard scatters and kind of, it's still cold, of course, still snowy, but now we can actually see where we are. We realize that we're just in the valley.
Yeah, not too far from where
we're not too far from where we need to go, and we're heading back to see
Thundard
Amberhorn, because we figure that he could help us out with the standing stones, the situation there at the cairn, because we just can't figure out how to get inside. So we return on that day to see Thundred. And, that night we tell him the story of what we encountered. And he has heard the legend.
Yeah, he tells the party of the legend of Grimulf Tartarson.
Yes.
Who was a great warrior, follower of the goddess of Finra,
yeah,
who
wolf
is
goddess
the
Finra.
protector.
Yeah.
She's also the wolf mother.
Yeah.
She has wolves that surround her,
yeah.
and she's got her consort who has wolves, which is kind of based upon Cyrnos, the horned hunter, which has the wolf pack, or master of the hunt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of roughly based upon that. But Grimwolf is a follower of Finra, and he tells them that he had been betrayed at one point.
Yeah.
And he had a wolf as a companion, and he and his wolf had been killed, and as a mockery they had taken the head of the wolf and sewn it onto his body and thrown his head into the well, and so he was out for vengeance. And until the curse was broken, now he didn't know all about the curse, he just figures, he just kind of adds all this up. Because he's been around for a while, he's heard things.
He's heard a lot of stories, and we don't know specifically what happened to Grimulf Tartarson, if he was betrayed by his Jarl, or he was betrayed by bandits, or something, but it had to do with that village, it had to do with the well, it had to do with the wolf, it had to do with his status as a great warrior, but like I said, we were able to break the curse, and so that's how it ended up, that's how that part of it ended up being resolved. And, when they're telling Thundred Amberhorn all this, we ask him if he'll accompany us back to the Giant's Thumb. And he is very reluctant, but he will come with us. But, of course, he warns us over and over again, I'm sorry, my friends.
Death awaits.
Death awaits you. These places are full of death. Death awaits you there. I'll go with you. I am reluctant to do this, but I will go with you. But death awaits you.
Now, unfortunately, Kara can't make this game, so we're sorry. And Karnak and Sophie decide to.
They don't come.
They're actually sick. They actually say that they're sick from the day of freezing and cold, and they decide to stay at Thunder's little camp. Yeah,
they stay at his camp to recuperate after all the damage that they took with the fight with the warrior and the undead and stuff like that. So. On the 6th, then, we travel from Thundred's fortified village back up the valley, following the river back up the valley to where the standing stone is, and it's got the giant's thumb sticking up. We get there, and Thundred, of course, does his circuit of the hill, and
Well, actually, before that, you come across a cave, which was a random encounter, which again was one of the cards, which was a cave with something in it.
Well, I thought that cave was part of the actual.
No, it actually was. It was actually before. It was just not too far.
Oh.
You had missed it. Maybe the winds had blown it open and.
Oh, okay. So we come across the entrance of a cave, and the inside is a dead minotaur.
Now, minotaurs are a creature of chaos. They didn't exist in my realm until the time of chaos.
Just like the owlbear.
Just like the owlbear.
Yeah.
And in this cave is a petrified Minotaur
Yeah.
laying there holding this big double-headed axe.
Yeah, the axe, it's a hand axe. It can be used by a human with one hand, but it's big. It's got two blades, two round half blades, and it's a magical axe. It does a lot of damage. It's a +2. And it's an exotic weapon. Most people can't handle it, but Maud, because Maud's a fighter, is proficient with exotic weapons. Even though Maud has her bow, and she prefers to use the bow, takes the axe for the time being, and hangs on to it. We determine that it's magical.
Yeah.
So
Well, if she ever gets into hand-to-hand combat, you got to have a weapon. You can't always fight with a bow because
that's true.
you're fighting right next to somebody. You're going to take attacks of opportunity.
Yeah.
So she takes it as a weapon to use.
And we continue on then to reach the mound. And Thundred, being a dwarf, aged dwarf, has a lot of understanding about construction. He does a circuit of the mound, and we walk around, and he taps on rocks, and he looks here and there, and
Scrapes away some
snow, and comes to the conclusion that there's a hollow chamber underneath it. We just have to figure out a way to get in.
Yeah, and when he finally digs around, he figures where the most logical spot would be.
Yeah, and that would be sort of roughly, comparable to this area
On this model.
which is sort of an indentation into the side where something might have collapsed. And so then you have to do a lot of digging to get back down into there.
A couple days worth of digging.
A couple days worth of digging. Now, Matic summons an earth elemental, which is great because earth elementals do some digging.
Right.
And this thing's able to just, burrow its way through, and it tears open part of the side and reveals a grotto underneath there. And the grotto is full of dead trees and debris, but it's a big, kind of a hollow space underneath part of this.
Where they had lumber that was burying it. And
underneath part of this hill, and you have to climb down inside it. But it's sheltered from the snow, and it's sheltered from the cold, and we decided to spend the night down there.
Right.
So, the next day, we start searching through the grotto, and we find there's a lot of debris piled up. But Thundred thinks that there's a secret door back under there, and so we pull even more stone away, and
the dead trees,
dead
lumber, or the old lumber,
chunks of lumber. And Thundred constructs kind of a apparatus that supports a lot of the debris, and we managed to find a secret door. And then we don't go in it that day because it's too late.
Right.
But so we spend another night down there,
right,
in the grotto, and on the 7th, we wake up and we take one look at the secret door, and we're like, okay, this is the day we're going in.
It's actually the 8th.
Okay.
The 8th of February.
Okay.
The 7th is when you decide to. There's a secret door, and then it's on the 8th that you get in through the secret door.
Yeah, on the 8th, I guess we decide then that we're going to open the door and enter. Of course, all this time, Thundred's saying, my friends, I warn you now, death awaits you in these places. These places are full of curses. They're full of creatures. This is a dangerous, dangerous place. I'll go with you, but you have to understand how dangerous these places are.
They open the secret door, and standing there, facing them, is an undead frost giant.
It's an immense undead frost giant who just roars and is ready to take us on. It's just right there in the entrance. It's been waiting.
It heard them. It heard them digging and was waiting.
And was waiting. Now there's a problem. One of our party runs.
Frostwolf, who has as we explained in previous campaign tales, has faced Morte, and he's got this fear of death. He's been seeing things.
Yeah.
And he sees this undead giant, and he has to make a fear check. And he fails his fear check massively.
Yeah.
And he drops his magical sword, Hilari, and runs off into the woods.
Yeah.
So cower behind trees.
Yeah. So what we've been encountering, the problem we've been having with Frostwolf over this time, is that he hasn't been sleeping very well. And he's been having these dreams where he's been attacked by shadow figures and undead creatures, and frost giants are in his dreams, and he's been waking up, scared, and these things are really starting to affect him. And he's been mentioning this, and we mentioned this once before in one of the earlier episodes that he's been having.
And everyone's kind of like, nah, he's just seeing things.
Yeah, we just like, oh yeah, he's been seeing things, whatever,
things from his nightmares.
Yeah, but he's believing these things to be real that he's been seeing. It's sort of like hallucinations, not so much dreams, but hallucinations. And when he sees that frost giant, he just loses it, drops his sword and runs. And so all of a sudden we're without one of our best warriors. He's not the barbarian. He's the fighter with the big sword. And remember, now he called himself Frost Ulf Giant Slayer because he killed the giant with the goblin before.
Yeah, on his
and all
own.
of a sudden on his own, and now he's booking it out of there. And here we are like, hey, Frost Ulf, hey! And he's gone. And then of course the thing is up like, it's roaring, and it's got a sword, and it's armored, and it's ready to kill us. And luckily, Thundred comes to our rescue by, Thundred, of course, his ancient foe, being a dwarf, is giants, and he screams, "Death to giants!" and charges the thing. And that kind of snaps us out of it as we attack.
Right, and then the fight ensues. They end up killing the giant. Of course, their clerics help keep it at bay and keep the party healed.
Yep.
Only Yrsa is the only one only cleric in the party that has the ability to turn undead at this time.
Yeah.
Now she couldn't turn this one, but she does do some other things with some of her magic or her divine abilities to help the party out, and they win the day in this specific battle.
Yeah. I can't describe to you how satisfying it is for a group of 4th and 5th level adventurers to take on an undead frost giant and kill it. It was amazing. And so, we're happy that this happens, but the corridor, in the corridor is this huge undead stinking frost giant. We got to get around it, and the corridor goes down, 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 and underneath this hill.
All right.
And, there's a sense of fear and trepidation as we go down. And we're very careful.
And it's a big place because it's got it's holding the giant, so it's got to be at least the height of a giant. So you've got these massive walls, and ceilings,
and these big carved
fine
columns.
Decoration.
Yeah, it's finely decorated all over, and it's big. And we have a bullseye lantern, and our dwarf has dim vision, or he might even have dark vision.
Yeah, he's got dark vision, and he actually tells them that this is actually of a dwarven construction.
Yeah,
probably constructed by dwarven slaves to the giants.
Yeah. Yeah, probably, which means it's thousands of years old.
Yeah.
It's very ancient. And Maud and Berger are moving very slowly across the floor. We're
checking for traps the whole way.
Because we're not sure. This thing is thousands of years old. There could be traps under here that we will never even understand.
Yeah.
And we find that there's these oddly marked tiles on the floor, and we're avoiding them and moving around them. We never find out if they're traps or not. We avoid them. But we move along. And we come to an immense, intricate carving in the floor of the solar system with the sun and moons and
there's
planets.
Columns all through this, holding part of it up. And
it's like this enormous cathedral with these huge carved columns. And in the middle is this big map that has the sun, the moon, stars, everything orbiting around it.
Yeah,
and it's carved
circles with
intricately.
circles with circles.
Yeah.
And I actually have a map of my solar system for the party, of the planet and the sun and the names of them. And in parts of other campaigns, they've actually ran into this. Now, this party doesn't understand this. They're like, what is this intricate thing? And they're not really sure what it is. But it is a constellation of, like I said, the sun and the different planets and the worlds revolving. And there's a couple of planets that are the twin planets that revolve around each other, and moons that have moons. And
keep in mind now, we're still a young group. I mean, we're essentially just like teenagers. And so all we know about the world is myth and legend, and what people have told us. It's like, they point in the sky and they say, see, that is the snowcat. You can see it leaping. That is the constellation.
That's Fenra, the goddess.
Yeah, that is the Fenra. See her woof and her head and her tail. You see, that is the spearman. That is the boat that sails.
That is Morte, the skull of death.
Yeah, that's all we know about any life, and
Right.
you know, so we look at this and we're just astounded, but we don't understand it. We're just too young. And even Karnak, you know, Karnak's not there, but even Thundred Amberhorn just looks at it and says, "This is ancient. This
Yeah.
is ancient. This is something from before the times, and this is something that someone has put a lot of time into carving. And there's a mystery here, and I don't understand it. This is ancient beyond me."
Yeah, he doesn't understand really the constellation either. He's never seen it.
Yeah.
He's never encountered this. Like I said, most people outside of the world have never seen this. Now, in past campaigns, the parties run into it and figured it out. They've
Yeah.
actually come across ones that are actually moving.
Yeah, they actually have
Or
movement on their
dimension,
own.
or they can see it in shape and
Yeah.
and can see it, and they figure out what's going on.
Those
But
are
this
in
case-
past adventures.
right?
Yeah.
So in this one, the party doesn't really know, and as they're standing there observing this, and they start skirting around it, not knowing if it's a trap or what.
Yeah.
Within their bullseye lantern, they see a skeleton of a giant creature.
Yeah. Tucked
Most
away
likely,
in the
it's
corner of the
actually a
room.
dragon.
Yeah,
But they
we-
don't recognize
Yeah,
what it is.
we don't
They've
actually
never seen a dragon.
Yeah, we just
before.
see huge bones, a big skull, huge bones,
Teeth and
teeth.
claws.
We're not sure.
And as they stop, and they're looking at this,
Matic.
Medic, their witch decides that he wants to go investigate, and
Yeah.
he steps 40 to 50 feet away from the party.
Yeah. Now keep in mind
They've been all looking for traps.
Yeah, we're all been looking for traps. So we're all in a row, kind of grouped together like this, kind of like this in a group, in a team, supporting each other. We got people in the back looking behind us. We got people on the sides looking on the other side of us.
They're walking 2x2s basically.
Yeah, walking 2 by 2, and so we're all keeping a watch out for anything that could ambush us. Matic decides, oh, look at those bones. I'm curious about that, and so trucks off.
40 feet away from the rest of the party.
In still within the cone of the bullseye lantern we have, but trucks off to go see the stones, and not the stones, but goes off to see the animal bones, and something terrible happens.
Yeah, he gets jumped by 3 wraiths.
Wraiths.
One of them is a giant wraith.
Now, if you think wraiths are bad enough, think of a giant wraith. A wraith that came from a giant, and you'll have an idea of what happens to
Yeah, Matic gets
Matic.
basically he gets surrounded,
yeah.
and there's
They'll do that. They'll swarm you.
yeah they swarm him. They surround him on 3 sides.
Yeah.
And so he's got options of getting out of there. And Thomas decides that he said he was going to. He thought about levitating because his witch could levitate. The only problem is the wraiths can fly as well.
They can fly.
So that really wouldn't have done him any good.
Yeah.
The best thing that he could have done would probably have been acrobatic out on his turn, and instead he didn't do that.
No. This is one of the things that happens when undead swarm you. And this has happened to a character of mine when one of my bards was killed. He got cornered by wraiths, and the ability drained him down to nothing and killed him. So what he could have done too is acroed out of there, but my bard in the past wasn't able to do that in time, and he eventually was basically just sucked dry until he died. Now Matic, here's how you should take a look at your character and decide how you want to play your character. Okay, there's times to stand and fight, and there's times to retreat. Their first attacks on Matic should have been a pretty hefty clue about what was going on.
Well, at least the first one.
Their first round of attacks
And
against
having
him.
already faced undead before,
Yeah.
almost getting killed.
Yeah, he should have realized as the ability drained him, because that's what they do. They drain you. The thing to do is not stand and fight, but to acro, blow a hero point or whatever, acro out of there.
Yeah.
And get back to the party so the party can heal and protect you. Matic decides to pull out the dagger and fight. And I remember thinking, oh, that's not going to work. It's bad, because when they swarm you, especially one of them's
Especially when you're witch, you're not that good at it.
yeah, one of them's a giant wraith. Regular wraiths are bad enough, but one's a giant wraith. And all of a sudden, they attack again, and Matic's killed.
And Matic will come back as an undead.
Yeah, Matic will come back as an undead. So what we have to do is
And
fight.
at this time they'd gotten Frostwolf back.
Yeah.
And Frostwolf sees these, and he drops his sword again.
Yeah.
And hightails it out.
He runs again because he's afraid. He just runs all the way back out.
Fails his fear check again.
Yeah, fails his fear check in, and he's gone. So he's not there to help us. But luckily, we do have a cleric, and we do some turn undeads. We do some bursts, and we manage to fight them off and kill them. Now, there's an interesting thing that happens when we kill the giant wraith. As it collapses, it screams.
In giant. But they actually have comprehend languages going at this time.
Yeah, we understand what it's going to say. It screams, "Death to all humans, and in the everlasting winter." And then it disappears.
Yeah.
So that should kind of clue us all into what's going on. The giants know about the everlasting winter. They hate humans. They're there to kill humans. And somehow this everlasting winter has come about because of their actions, we think. We're not sure, but we think that.
Yeah, we're starting to put pieces together within this puzzle of the adventure of what is going on.
Yeah. All humans will perish in the everlasting winter.
And just as the fight is ending, Frostwolf regains his courage and does come back. But he's there, he comes back too late, and everyone's kind of like, "Where'd you go?"
Yeah.
He's like, couldn't help it.
Couldn't help it. It scared me. I had to go. That kind of stuff. So, well, we examined the rest of the space, and it's enormous. It's like a huge medieval cathedral in there. Those columns and carvings everywhere. And towards the back of the room, there's a big beer, a big funeral beer, and it's a
pier.
No, not a pier. It's a beer.
A beer.
B-I-E-R. It's a beer, which is like a kind of an altar.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's made of skulls, all kinds of skulls.
Yeah, humanoid skulls.
Yeah.
Humans, dwarves, elves,
Everything.
gnome, halfling, orc, goblin, bugbear, ogre, troll.
And see, this then plays into the image we had once before, where all of us had a dream that we would encounter a giant skeleton on top of a bier of skulls.
Yeah.
And as we approach it, we're all struck by that image. It's like deja vu. Oh, this is what we saw in our dream. So the significance of the moment...
And there's a giant skeleton.
There's a giant skeleton on it. The significance of the moment hits us all. And we realize, we're on the right track. Something's happening here. Pay attention to what's going on in this adventure.
Pay attention to the dreams that you've been getting.
Yeah, to the dreams. Pay attention to what we hear during combat from giants or whatever. These things are significant. Now we examine the skeleton, and it has a kind of a amazing suit of armor and a big sword with it. And Birgid decides to go up and take hold of the sword, and it burns Birgid for 24 points of fire damage.
Yeah, it's a cursed sword.
It's cursed.
It's an evil weapon.
It's an evil weapon, and we figured the armor plate has got to be evil too. Everything about it's evil.
Now they come to find out through Thundard that the breastplate that the giant had is actually adamantium, but they don't have the skills. Within my realm, only dwarves or some of the giants have the skill to work in adamantine, and Thundar does not have that skill. He is not a blacksmith, and there's nobody in the Wildlands that would be able to even touch it. There's not even an elf. You'd have to take it to a dwarf, to the dwarven kingdoms, and they could probably do something with it and use it. But it's a really rare piece of metal.
Yeah, how could you resize it for either a human or a dwarf or an elf? It'd be impossible unless you were an actual dwarven smith. Not only that, but you've got to remove the curse from it.
Yeah, and in my realm, armor is not a one size fits all, or it doesn't shrink.
It shouldn't be.
It has to be modded to fit you within height and weight limit. And of course, this thing is massive, so they end up using it as a sled to haul the sword back and
other things that we
a few
get.
other things that they got.
Yeah. So we wrap the sword up in hides and stuff so that no one will touch it, because we're all afraid to touch the thing because it's cursed. It'll burn you.
It's a big, huge, massive two-handed sword.
Massive two-handed sword. I mean, the thing's probably like the size of a tree. And we use the armor as a sledge, and we drag it out of there. We go back out the passageway past the body of the undead giant, frost giant that's there. And as we get back into the grotto, Thundred takes one look back at it and says...
Oh, they did have to fight Matic as an undead.
Oh, that's right.
Matic came back.
Matic came back as an undead, and we had to fight Matic. And then we had to consecrate Maddox's corpse
Right.
to keep it from coming back as an undead again. So that's what can happen is you can be killed by undead, and then you're raised up as undead.
Yeah. It was sad.
Yeah,
it was sad.
We lost a party member.
Right.
It was bad. Maddox hadn't been with the group that long, and we lost Maddox, and it was one of those things where, you know, it's unfortunate, and we lost a party member, but luckily no one else got killed, and so we were able to survive the fight. It was a significant fight. You know, fighting undead is never easy. Fighting undead is always problematic. You never know what they're going to do. They swarm you. They can do a lot of damage. They can do ability drains. They can curse you. They can give you grave fever. They can do all kinds of nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And so as we go back into the grotto out through the secret door, Thundred then uses his construction ability to collapse the construction that he built to hold up the debris. And all the debris comes down, and it fills up the chamberway, so that someone else would have to put a lot of effort into physically digging their way back into that place. And essentially he does that to seal it up to keep anybody else from getting in there.
Yeah.
Because it's such an evil place, full of undead and stuff.
So the party heads back to Thunder's camp, and then that's where the day actually ended in this adventure. So with that, we're going to end this episode of Campaign Tales. So thanks for watching Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
May all your adventures be epic.
And may you ever roll 20s.
Keep on role-playing.
Thanks, folks.